Let me tell you a story that'll make your blood boil and your heart race a tale of stubborn pride, sneaky land grabs, and a fight for what's rightfully mine. My name's Henry Thompson, a 58-year-old retired CIVYL engineer, and for the past few months, I've been tangled in a mess so outrageous it could only happen in a world where HOAs think they're kings. Buckle up because this one's a wild ride. 30 years ago, when I was just a young guy scraping by, I poured every cent I had into a 10-acre slice of paradise out in the countryside. It was nothing but rolling fields and dense forest back then, with a stunning 3-acre wooded patch crisscrossed by a babbling creek. That land became my sanctuary. I'd wander through the trees, listen to the birds, and feel the world slip away. Over the decades, I carved out trails, cataloged every critter from woodpeckers to deer, and snapped photos like some wannabe nature photographer. It was my pride and joy, especially after my wife, Sarah, passed 5 years ago. Those woods became my refuge, where I'd sit by the creek for hours, letting the quiet heal me. But the world doesn't stand still. About 15 years back, developers swooped in, turning the nearby farmland into a fancy subby VY town called Crestwood Estates. At first, it wasn't so bad. Some neighbors were friendly enough, and I kept to myself, tending my land. The Crestwood HOA, though, had other ideas. They'd send snooty letters about my overgrown property or my eyesore shed, which I ignored since I wasn't part of their little club. I had my paperwork locked-tight original deed, tax records for 3 decades, and a professional survey from 5 years ago when they first got pushy about boundaries. I was ready for trouble, but I never expected what came next. 3 months ago, I was strolling through my woods, checking on some woodpecker nests, when I heard chainsaws screaming. My stomach dropped. I followed the noise and found 4 guys in work vests hacking down my maple trees, spray painting markers, and planting flags right through my property. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, trying to keep my cool. The foreman, a beefy guy with a clipboard, barely looked up. "Clearing for the Crestwood Nature Trail," he grunted. "HOA project." I was floored. "This is my land," I said. "I've owned it for 30 years. He shoved a cheap map in my face, showing my woods labeled as community green space. It was nonsense. I told him there was a mistake, but he just shrugged. "Take it up with the HOA, buddy. I go where they tell me." I snapped photos of the damaged splintered trees, torn earth, and asked them to stop. Instead, the foreman called someone, smirking. "Yeah, got an old guy here claiming he owns the place. Says we're trespassing." An hour later, a sleek SUV rolled up and outstepped 3 people, led by a woman in a sharp blazer who looked like she'd rather be at a board meeting than in my woods. She introduced herself as Margaret Klein, Crestwood's HOA president, flanked by 2 board members like bodyguards. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "there's been a misunderstanding. This land was annexed by our community years ago. We've been paying the taxes on it." I took a deep breath to keep from losing it. "That's impossible. I've owned this property for 30 years, and I've got every document to prove it." She waved me off like I was a pesky fly. "Our community needs this trail, and we won't let some stubborn old man stop progress. This land's been neglected forever." Neglected? I'd spent decades nurturing those woods, protecting every tree, every bird. I tried to explain, but she wasn't hearing it. "Leave now, or I'll call the police," she snapped. "You're trespassing." I planted my feet. "I'm not Leah VYing my own land. Check your records." That's when she dialed 911, spinning a tale about a hostile trespasser threatening her crew. It was so absurd I almost laughed, but the stakes were too high. 20 minutes later, 2 cops showed up, hands on their belts, looking wary. Margaret rushed over, pointing at me like I was a criminal. I stayed calm. "Officers, I'm the owner of this property. Been mine for 30 years. I've got all the paperwork in my house, just over there." I pointed to my place, VY Seibel through the trees. The officers exchanged a glance. Margaret jumped in, insisting the HOA own the land, but the older cop cut her off. "Let's see those documents, sir." I led them to my house, Margaret and her goons trailing behind. Inside, I opened my fireproof safe and spread everything out. The 30-year-old deed, tax receipts, the survey, even a photo album of me tending the land over the years. The younger cop whistled. This looks solid. They studied it all, nodding. Back outside, Margaret stood with her arms crossed, fuming. The older officer turned to her. Ma'am, his documents check out. This seems like a civil matter. I suggest you talk to your lawyers before doing anything else here. Her face turned beet red. Those could be forgeries. We have county approval for our plans. The cop shook his head. These look legit. Get legal ad VYC. She stormed off, vowing to push forward. I thought that was the end of it. I was dead wrong. The next morning, I woke to the roar of heavy machinery. At the edge of my property, workers were unloading tools, and more trees were gone chopped down overnight. My heart sank, but I wasn't backing down. I called my old college buddy, Tom Reynolds, now a property law attorney. He told me to document everything and stay clear of the workers. By noon, he was at my house, poring over my paperwork. He made calls, sent emails, and filed for an emergency injunction to stop the HOA's destruction. He also arranged for a licensed surveyor to remark my boundaries. What we found was jaw-dropping. For years, the HOA had been sneaking my woods into their community maps, erasing my property line bit by bit. They'd never filed a legal claim, but they'd conned VY and said their residents my land was theirs. An arborist valued the tree damage at due law $18,000, and we slapped the HOA with a cease and desist letter. I installed wildlife cameras, and, good thing I did 2 days later, they caught Margaret and another board member yanking out my survey stakes, thinking no one was watching. The HOA's lawyers fired back, threatening to bury me in court costs and claiming adverse possession. But Tom wasn't fazed. He dug deeper and found this wasn't their first rodeo. 2 elderly homeowners on the other side of Crestwood had faced similar land grabs, but gave up rather than fight. We reached out to them, building a case that showed a pattern of HOA overreach. Then, a break came from inside Crestwood. A resident, Lisa Carter, emailed me, furious. She said the HOA had been telling homeowners for years that my woods were community property, even collecting extra fees for nature preserve maintenance that never happened. Lisa had seen my survey stakes and smelled a rat. She offered to help, spreading the truth among her neighbors. People were pissed, learning their fees were based on a lie. The showdown came at Crestwood's next HOA meeting. Tom had VY sent me to attend, but stay quiet unless called on. The room was packed, tension thick as fog. When the nature trail came up, residents let loose. Why are we being sued for trespassing on land we own? One demanded. Why'd we pay fees for land that's not ours? Another shouted. Margaret tried to brush it off as a minor boundary dispute, but then a retired real estate guy, Ed Simmons, stood up. I checked the public records, he said, voice steady. That land's been privately owned for 30 years. The HOA has no claim. The room exploded. People demanded a financial audit, and the motion passed in a landslide. 2 weeks later, an emergency meeting sealed Margaret's fate. The audit uncovered not just the fake fees, but thousands in HOA funds she'd siphoned for personal use. The board kicked her and the treasurer out, and a new interim board took over. The new president, James Lee, reached out to me, asking to meet. At my kitchen table, he apologized. We've re-VYEU'd everything, Henry. That land's yours, always has been. We want to make this right. Over the next month, we hashed out a deal. The HOA paid for the tree damage and updated all their maps to show my boundaries. They also offered to buy a half-acre easement for a small walking trail, paying well above market value. I agreed, but with ironclad rules. No cutting mature trees, no PA-VYing, no lights, and limited hours to protect the wildlife. We added a buffer zone with signs and natural barriers to keep things clear. Margaret didn't go quietly. The audit exposed her embezzlement, and last I heard, she's facing criminal charges. But for me, peace returned. The new HOA respects my land, and I've even worked with them to create educational signs about the local ecosystem for trail users. I used the easement money to start a small conservation fund for the creek, which flows through my land and into Crestwood. It's brought me new friends among the eco-minded residents, and we've done cleanups together. Looking back, I realize how close I came to losing my woods. If I hadn't kept every receipt, every survey, every photo, I might have been steamrolled. Standing my ground wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Margaret's downfall wasn't my doing. Her own greed did her in. Now, I walk my trails daily, watching the seasons shift, the creek sparkle, the birds soar. Sometimes I spot Crestwood folks on the trail. Most wave. A few stop to chat about a hawk they saw or a tree they love. It's not the ending I expected when I found strangers tearing up my land, but it's better. My woods are safe, and now my neighbors help protect them too. So what do you think? Was I right to fight tooth and nail for my land? Or should I have compromised earlier? Could the HOA have had a point? Or were they just power-hungry bullies? And what about Margaret? Did she deserve her fall? Or was she just misguided? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this story got your blood pumping, and subscribe for more real-life drama. Let's get this debate going.